Be advised, the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm Buddy Kunana. Now, on this show, we talk about everything under the sun, and tonight's topic is about current events. Now, for the past so many months, we've all had a ringside seat via media, principally TV and newspapers, to the very historic and very controversial impeachment trial of Supreme Court Chief Justice Fernando Corona, which has resulted in the latter's ouster from office, the first time a Chief Justice of the Philippines has been subjected to such a fate. Now, in this very controversial and very historic event, many cause-oriented groups and non-government organizations have followed the developments very closely. And tonight, we're going to talk to one such group, a group called Tanggulang Demokrasya, about their views and reflections on this show entitled Reflections on the Corona Impeachment Trial. So, I'd like to welcome on the show the spokesperson for Tanggulang Demokrasya, starting on my right with Ms. Jing Mable.
Hello, buddy.
Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Happy to be here.
Yes, ma'am.
Hopefully, we'll be able to send our message to our kababayan na bumangon na. No?
Yes, ma'am. And beside you is Mr. June Estrella, who's also a spokesperson for Tanggulang Demokrasya and an IT expert.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to Philippines Uncut.
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity of giving Tanggulang Demokrasya at least a time for us to be able to provide you with our advocacy and programs that we have for the immediate future.
Our pleasure, sir. Now, before we start talking about our topic for tonight, let's introduce yourselves to our viewers. Tell us a bit about yourselves. Starting with you, Ms. Mable.
I'm Jing Mable. I'm a freelance writer now, and I teach part-time at the Philippine Polytechnic University. And so since I'm semi-retired, I have time to devote to advocacies like those we have at Tandem. And I think it's high time that we really work hard on it.
What do you teach po in Philippine Polytechnic?
media law and ethics, and
Very timely.
and of course the world literature and Philippine literature courses, investigative journalism, things like
Yes, ma'am.
courses like.
Kayo po, Mr. Estrella.
Well, I'm currently now a management consultant. I do project management, working with some banks, IT systems, and on the side, I'm working with Tandem specifically for the computerization aspect of the 2010 elections and the 2013 elections.
Another two very touchy subjects, also very controversial subjects, but we'll talk about it later. Let's talk about Tandem first. Tanggulan Demokrasya, we heard the very inspiring and very beautiful hymn in the opening of the show, and I think that really encapsulates what Tandem is all about. And it's very, it seems like it's an organization that's really dedicated towards nation building and improvement of society. Now, tell us more about Tandem. When was this founded, and why was it founded?
Tandem is really a product of the advocacies of different groups, for good governance, but which sort of converged on the electronic rigging that happened in the 2010 elections. So we have a group, an aggregation of about 13 professional groups and concerned citizens, and for the past 2 years we have been trying to gather the, information and evidence proving that indeed the PCOS machines that were used in the 2010 elections can be hacked and had been hacked. So, this we have cases filed in court,
Okay.
but with the recent development with the impeachment of the Chief Justice Corona, we feel that somehow we have been denied the
Yes.
hope of
Yes.
finding justice
Yes, yes.
for the Philippine electorate.
Yes. How big is this organization, Mr. Estrella? How big is Tandem?
Well, Tandem started with about 4 or 5 organizations, but now it has grown to about 13, 14 as the core. Like in my case, I was with the Global Filipino Group. The specific name is Global Filipino Nation. The chairman of that is Vic Barrios. And we were accredited as an election observer for the 2010 elections. And at the end of our observation, during the actual election day and afterwards, we wrote a report that challenges the results of the 2010 elections. And from there, that became the main focal point of Tanggulang Demokrasya, of really looking out and finding out what really happened in the 2010 elections.
And then from that advocacy, it sort of you sort of spun off now because of this major event in our country, the impeachment and conviction of Chief Justice Renato Corona. How did Tandem now move
Segue
from PCOS to Corona impeachment?
Actually, the main argument against the 2010 elections was the violation of the law. So we at Tandem, we really advocate for the rule of law, so that during the deliberations for the armed elections, when the present administration tried to change the law
Yes.
to conform to what it thinks should be done, we advocated for the rule of law. And now, with the recent impeachment of former Chief Justice Corona, we saw that there is this trend of making the crooked straight, no? I mean, just so they get what they want, they twist the law or they twist things And this is something that, we Filipinos shouldn't tolerate anymore. It's been happening for the last 100 years. We cannot go on like this.
Yes, it was in the hymn when we saw the lyrics at the bottom of the screen. Like,
Galit na yung agila,
tama na
oo.
yung pagnanakaw. Let's now work for the as you said, the rule of law. Now, speaking about the rule of law, let's talk about the impeachment trial. And as you all know, it started in the lower house, the House of Representatives. What are your reflections about what happened there? Because as I recall, it was transmitted, it was passed, the articles of impeachment were passed with really, in almost record time. I can't even think of any law that has been
In
passed
3
by the lower
hours.
house as fast.
In 3 hours.
So what do you think about what happened in the lower house? Because as we all know, from the lower house, the articles of impeachment are now transmitted to the upper house, the Senate, for trial. So let's begin with the lower house. And that really is where it all started. What do you think about, what are your reflections on that, Mr. Estrella?
Well, from the point of view of a citizen,
Yes.
not that of a lawyer, one, it will take some time for you to be able to evaluate a case that is given to you for assessment. And just reading it will take you several hours because the
900
allegations
pages.
that were placed in the sheet, information sheet,
Yes.
is such that it will be a little bit difficult to comprehend in one sitting. So you may really need to take some time to understand and develop a position with regards to the information that you get. At the same time, you need to do some research. You need to get more information to be able to find out whether the information that is provided you is one, accurate,
Yes.
it is fair, and the process that you will undergo will be as transparent as you can. Otherwise, you will not be preserving the rights of a particular citizen. It's very difficult to charge an individual and tell him he's already guilty.
Yes.
Well, I still guess that, learning it from civics, that we are presumed to be innocent,
Until
That's
proven
supposed to be how it
guilty.
is.
until proven guilty. That's
Yeah.
the whole exercise.
Yes. And
In-
you were mentioning something about the volume of papers.
900 pages. How can you read that
articles
in
of
3
impeachment were
hours?
900 pages thick.
Thick.
Wow. Okay.
And they said there was this PowerPoint presentation, no? But, well, I'm also not a lawyer, but I'm a writer, no? And I listen to the experts, no? And in a press conference, the day before the actual filing of the impeachment case sa Senate, the governors of the IBP
The
held
Integrated Bar of the
a
Philippines.
press conference.
Yes.
IBP,
Yes.
Integrated Bar of the Philippines, held a press conference. And in that forum, they stated clearly that of the 86 IBP chapters all over the Philippines, 83 nag-vote sila that the impeachment case was constitutionally infirm. So, writer ako, I respect the expertise of other people, no? So that alone should have guided the decisions of our lower and higher houses of Congress.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
And-
yes.
Hindi.
Yes.
So
Well,
that's-
apparently, 188 congressmen affixed their signatures or voted to transmit these articles of impeachment to the upper house. How can you explain that? How can you explain that an overwhelming majority of congressmen, of lawmakers in the lower house actually, chose to transmit it to the upper house?
Well, if you look at it, it would seem to be that even before such a proposition was made to them, their minds were already made up. Okay? It's very difficult to understand how people can say yes to a particular proposition. Specifically, this allegation that they have against the Chief Justice of the Philippines. In a democracy, it is not easy to charge people. It's not just I accuse you and then you just say, okay, I'm done after the accusation and let others evaluate whatever I said. It will take some time. See, buddy, I conduct executive seminars.
Opo.
if we have to talk about a particular subject, well, I use also PowerPoint presentations. But you have to go through the fundamentals, the concepts, the principles, specifically the purpose. And from that purpose, you strengthen it with enough details to convince the individual why you will be motivated and have the attitude to go with my proposition.
Yeah.
It takes time for you to make up your mind. I'm sure that is not difficult to understand from a point of view of an individual understanding a subject. But making a decision to say that you have done this in violation of this is still another stage of a decision-making process.
Yes.
And 3 hours, even a day, even a week, will take too long for you. Now, that's considering an individual. Now, considering that 188 people will have the same conclusion in 3 hours, gets you to be surprised. So the only thing that you can probably say at this point is, even before the subject was presented to them, their mind is already made up. It's just a confirmation of that particular mind.
Yes, and as you were saying, in management scenarios, where, as you said, that just making a simple decision, a management decision, requires people to be, the case to be explained to people, for it to be made clear, for all the facts to be out there, for full understanding.
Yes.
In this case, we're talking about the impeachment of a head of a
co-equal
co-equal branch of government, something not to be taken lightly.
Precisely. And the other thing is, you have not heard this side. See, this is the point. You have your own point of view. However, you need to find out the other person's point of view.
But is that a requirement though for in the House rules for them to let's say to pass or to vote on an impeachment complaint against an official? Is it a requirement for them to get that official's point of view as well?
Well, I am not so sure about the rules of the court on that one. But as far as I'm concerned, if I am an individual that is fair to everybody, I must hear the side of the other individual for me to be able to decide.
It's a moral responsibility.
It's not only a moral responsibility. It is, I think, the right of the individual to be heard. That is, I think, what you call due process.
Yes.
It's a due process, you know.
Now, how come their minds are? What do you think happened? How come the 188 congressmen, how come their minds were made up so fast? Usually it's very hard to get congressmen to vote this way or that way. You have to persuade them, you have to convince them. But in this case, wow, they all sailed in one direction.
If I look back into that process, I think that's a culmination of a longer process that started even before the election of the president. His mind is already made up against this individual, and he has started to lay the groundwork of that. See, there was a change, and I'm not saying that this was intentional. There was a change in the reporting line of the Land Registration Commission. There's a change of the reporting line of the AMLA. There's a preparation for an ombudsman. All of these things, I think, were planned ahead of time, and it just takes a confirmation of the final approving body for the impeachments, which are the congressmen, to be able to confirm that such a formal process can be implemented. At that point, the PowerPoint presentation is just more of a summary to give justification for the yes decision of the 188 people.
Ms. Mable, anything you should add?
Well, that kind of a scenario only goes to show graphically to the nation that our lawmakers are just like, robots following the drumbeat of the leader, no? When we think of the forefathers' concept of a republic, we have 3 equal branches of government. So, merong executive, and that's headed by the president. Meron yung legislative, headed by the congressmen and the senators, and the judiciary. So, when 188 congressmen sign after 3 hours such a grave document as the impeachment complaint against a co-equal branch of government, it's parang where is the independence of this congressmen now, no?
Yes.
Are they just following the executive without question, without anything? Or is there a quid pro quo, no? Yung kagagayan sinasabi ni Senator Santiago na so many deals were exchanged, no?
Yes.
For getting the Chief Justice impeached.
Yes.
Then, if that is the case, then nasaan yung matuwid na daan? I mean, that is corruption of the highest degree in the highest levels of government, no?
Yes.
And like that's why people like us in Tanggulang Demokrasya cannot just be silent about it, no? In fact, yung amin ngang logo agila. Wala na, diniscard na namin yung kalabaw. Hindi na tayo kalabaw. Galit na yung agila.
Galit na.
Oo. We cannot let this pass.
But see, the problem also lies in the system because, as we all know, the executive really has a stranglehold almost on specifically the House of Representatives because of its power, its control of the purse. And I think for many congressmen, the failure to toe the palace line would mean, let's say, virtual forfeiture of your pork barrel allocations. And as we know, in local politics or any politics is that if you can't bring home the bacon to your constituency, it's political suicide. Like example, Representative Mitos Magsaysay, who's also a host here in GNN, was one of those who didn't sign. And she's been quite open about it. She actually says that, I have not received my pork barrel allocations. In fact, she has a scholarship program, I understand, and she had to go to the private sector to get funding because there was really a lockout of funding for her from DBM, from the Department of Budget Management.
And now I remember, after the 188 signed, there were these 12 congressmen who did not sign, but who offered to sign. So naging 200 plus yan signatories. The reason, the one in Bicol, the reason given was that we cannot deprive our constituency, according to this congressman of Bicol, the benefits of the pork barrel that would be denied them if they did not sign.
Yes. So it's really damned if you do, damned if you don't. And what, Mr. Rochelle,
Well, talking about the pork barrel, if you have to give one out of the 200 plus congressmen his pork barrel, it is but fair you have to give the others.
Yes.
Otherwise, you are having favorites. In fact, in your family, if you have so many sisters and brothers, you don't like favorites. The point here is, why should something that is meant not specifically for their representative, but for his constituents, that is due to the constituents, why will you deprive the constituents with the benefits that they should receive in the first place?
That's the big difference between here and the United States. So a lot of people are saying that the Philippine president, in terms of real power, is actually more powerful than the US president. Because in America, for instance, if I'm a congressman, let's say from New York or from Wisconsin, even if I'm against Mr. Obama and one of his fiercest critics, I get my pork barrel regardless. There's no stopping me getting my pork barrel. Unlike here, there are ways that I understand that DBM can actually delay it or realign it or withhold it for whatever reason.
Yes.
So there lies the problem.
So that in itself is a window for corruption in the highest levels.
Absolutely. And a way of co-opting a co-equal branch of government to do the bidding, the de facto bidding of the executive. Mr. Estrella, Ms. Mable, hold that thought. We've talked about the lower house. We'll shift now to the upper house when Philippines Uncut returns.
Okay.
Be advised, the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
wala ng kalayaan, umilos na mag-alangin ang pusong makabayan. Halina, alayain, mahal natin inang bayan. Bayan ko, bayan ko, bangon na. Bangon na, kababayan. Wakasan na ang kahirapan, itigil na ang nakawan. Ipaglaban ang karapatan, buhayin ang katanungan. Bayan ko, bumangon na.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Philippines Uncut. I'm Buddy Kunana. Now, on this show, we talk about everything under the sun, and tonight's topic is about current events. Now, for the past so many months, we've all had a ringside seat via media, principally TV and newspapers, to the very historic and very controversial impeachment trial of Supreme Court Chief Justice Fernando Corona, which has resulted in the latter's ouster from office, the first time a Chief Justice of the Philippines has been subjected to such a fate. Now, in these very controversial and very historic events,